welcome to Wrestling Nostalgia. I'm your host, Dave Dynasty. Thank you for joining us and being patient with us, because I know this episode was due out, 2 weeks ago, I believe? I don't know. Had a lot going on, busy schedule, just crazy crap going on, and it caused a delay. I am truly, truly sorry. But as a thank you for your patience, what we're doing, if you saw on social media, you already know this, what we're doing is we're releasing 3 episodes at one, right? We had a poll out there of which interview you wanted to hear, Jerry Jarrett, Rip Rogers, or Larry the Axe Hennig. Now, Jerry Jarrett won the poll and was going to be the interview that we did. But as a thank you for your patience, you know what? We're going to put 3 episodes out. We're going to put all 3 out. So anybody that voted and anybody that cared is happy. At least I hope. So consider this an early Christmas present and a special thank you for your patience and for listening to our show. So, you know, that's where we stand, right? We got 3 episodes, 3 great interviews with 3 legendary people from the wrestling business. And on this episode, we will have the winner of the poll, Mr. Jerry Jarrett, famed Memphis wrestler and promoter. But what you're going to see in this interview and the accompanying little history bit that I also did, as this is something we released previous, but you'll see this is just a discussion of Jerry Jarrett, his interactions and workings with Dick the Bruiser, particularly the brief 1982 partnership with Dick the Bruiser and Jerry Jarrett to promote shows in Indiana. You're going to hear all about that from Jerry's recollections, talking about when he first met Bruiser, when Bruiser came to Memphis, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll give you a little brief history of what I could scavenge up about that relationship from my research. So it's very cool stuff, very interesting, kind of a forgotten little snippet of wrestling history if you're not real familiar with it. So let's take a break. And when we come back, we will have that bit with Jerry Jarrett. So stick around. Be sure to follow the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network and all of the participating podcasts on social media. The easiest way to find us is on Twitter. You can follow the network at WrestlePods, and you can find all the individual shows at their Twitter accounts. You can find the Wrestling Nostalgia Show at Wrestle Nostalgia, the Ring a Ding Dong Dandy Podcast at Stampede Pod, and the Wild Men Podcast at Wild Men Podcast. Also search us on Facebook for pages and groups. Participate, interact, join the network, and be a fan. Thank you for your support. We have a very special guest with us, longtime legendary Memphis promoter, Jerry Jarrett. Mr. Jarrett, how are you today?
Dave, I'm fine, and I appreciate being on your show.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. Before we dive into things, we're going to talk about Dick the Bruiser today with you. Before we dive in, I want to just put a quick plug in. Everybody, make sure you check out every week Jerry's podcast, Booking Memphis. He does it with Sean Reedy. If you want to hear the Memphis side of Jerry Jarrett and all those stories and tales, you can check that out. It's available everywhere you get your podcast. And I also recommend you go on and find Jerry's book that he put out a few years ago. It's a great read. Again, if you want to hear the Memphis side of Mr. Jarrett's work, that's the place to go. But we're going to talk about Dick the Bruiser. Jerry, do you remember when you first met Dick the Bruiser?
Oh, well, like it was yesterday. I was a wrestling fan, and so through the magazines, I'd watched Dick and appreciated his work. Mm-hmm. But I went up and opened Louisville, Kentucky, and one night Dick the Bruiser and Wilbur Snyder showed up and informed me that was their town.
Right.
And so, I was very naive. I didn't know the history of who had run what, but I said, I don't see your name, Dick, when I drive up the interstate, where I'm entering Dickopolis country.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we ran it and we closed it down, but we still consider it our town.
Yeah.
So I went back to Nashville, and he said, unless you want to have trouble with us running against you, you need to work out a deal. And I said, what kind of deal? And he told me they wanted X percentage each week.
Yeah.
So I went back to Nashville and talked to Nick Goulas and Roy Welch, and they said, well, nobody owns any town, but there is respect for the territories, and you'd probably be making a wise decision to go ahead and pay them rather than have a fight with you being new in the town.
Right.
So for the next 3 or 4 years, I sent them a check, and then I got more savvy to the business. Figured out real quick that I was much more successful at promoting than they were, and had enough money to fight. So I called Dick and I said, Dick, I think I've paid enough blackmail, and you're not getting a check anymore, and you're welcome to come into Memphis or Louisville or any other town, and just understand that I'm looking seriously at coming into Chicago. And he said, no, you paid enough. Let's don't have a wrestling war.
Yeah.
And that was my first relationship with Dick.
Yeah.
Then a few years later, he called me and said, y'all are really burning it up down there in Tennessee, and I wondered if you'd want to co-promote some matches with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, sure. So that led to my second business round with Dick.
Yeah. Now you did bring him into Memphis to wrestle Jerry Lawler, correct? When in that run for the title.
Oh yes. I in my mind I have it broken into two categories: my relationship with Dick Aplis and my relationship with Dick the Bruiser.
Right.
Yes, I had always admired Dick the Bruiser, and he did come in. He agreed to come in and wrestle Lawler, and we had a great relationship on a talent basis.
Yeah. Yeah. So you say Bruiser called you about running the shows in Indiana. Obviously, at this time, Bruiser's business was in trouble. It was on the way down. It was clear to everybody. Anybody was watching the product. When you started talking about doing this with him, one of the gripes always been about Bruiser is his unawareness of younger talent. Did you ever have a talk with him about that? About, hey, maybe we need to back off the U and Bobo Brazil and Moose Cholak and focus on some younger, more exciting talent?
Not at the beginning.
Okay.
Because I respected the Eddie Farhat, the Sheik,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrestled and stayed on top way too long.
Yeah.
But I respected that these men own this promotion, and they had every right to make good decisions or bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It was their money. So at that point in time, no, I didn't have any conversation, although I was well aware that was the reputation he had.
Okay.
That, he outlived his prime.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But
go ahead.
I had that conversation after our first tour up there.
Okay. Now, so you started sending tapes to him, correct? Was that like maybe the Louisville edit of your show or whatever you were sending him up for his station?
I don't remember. I just sent him a tape, and the understanding was that he would add in his local stuff to my tape,
Mm-hmm.
and or add my stuff into his tape.
Right. Okay.
So, that was our arrangement, and in the process, it would get our talent exposed, and when he thought we were ready, we'd do a joint show.
Okay. Do you know how long the tape ran before you did that joint show? I mean,
You know, I wish I did,
okay.
but I it's hard for me. So much
Oh
happened
yeah.
in my life in the
Yeah.
wrestling business. It's hard for me to
Yeah.
recall exact dates and times, but I'm sure it ran 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Now you came up. You ran some joint shows. Were you aware that Bruiser was still running some of his smaller towns without your crew and doing his own still?
Oh, oh yes. I mean, it was never that we were going to take over or that we were going to buy his territory.
Okay.
It was never that understanding. It was that we were going to help him um, in his territory, and in return, those towns that we both shared in, we would share equally in the profits.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and you were during some of those tapings and shows that you were using the WWA tag belts kind of prominently. I know that eventually the New York Dolls won them from the Young Lions and stuff. Was there was there a talk about that being maybe the tag titles being a little bit of a focus on those joint shows? Was there ever a talk about his singles belt coming on, or were you just kind of going with the flow of it, and that's just kind of where it went?
Yeah, we didn't get into those kind of details because, I assumed that Dick was like me and looked at titles and belts as production props,
Okay.
and whatever he felt comfortable with in his town was fine with me. Um, our hot program at that time was Kamala, the Ugandan giant.
Yeah.
And yes, we recognized Vern Gagne's titles in our promotion, so that was exposed when we would send our tape up. I was always under the assumption, and Vern Gagne is the one that led me to believe that Bruiser's territory or area was a part of AWA.
Okay.
I don't know if it was or not, and it really was irrelevant.
Did you and Bruiser, like you talked about Kamala? Was there a talk with you? Did you tell him, hey, this is my hot guy right now. We have to protect him a little bit. He needs to look strong, or else it kind of messes on my end. I mean, did you have those kind of conversations, or did you just trust that Dick would do the right thing?
Yeah, I really didn't know the extent of Dick's ego
Yeah.
when I started that. And I would send him the tapes and the interviews with both the heel and the babyface, whoever Kamala was involved with. And little did I know that Dick was taking that tape and cutting out, leaving Kamala's interview in. And of course, Kamala had a manager, so because he didn't talk. And so Dick would then insert a match of him, and then he would make an interview as if this was going to be the main event. Dick the Bruiser against Kamala the Ugandan giant. So down in our area, everything was selling out. I mean, huge business.
Yeah.
And when we started the tour up there, it was far from a sellout.
Yeah.
It was just mediocre. And then I picked up a program and I saw that the main event was on the card was Dick the Bruiser against Kamala. So I went to Dick and I said, what's going on? This isn't what we've been building toward. And he said, well, Jerry, I just thought I'm more established here, and I thought I would draw more.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it obviously you didn't. And he said, yeah, our show was preempted one week. I mean, some bullshit excuses.
Yeah.
So I said, well, we have got to either come to an understanding, and I won't go to the trouble of trying. I'll try to help you, Dick, but I will, I'll quit trying to structure the TV and with interviews, and I'll just send matches up. And he said, no, send your program. And so that was before the match. And then we went in the match, and, Dick's style was to dominate.
Yeah, right.
And the Memphis style was to let the heel get a lot of heat, and then the babyface come back.
Mm-hmm.
So here Kamala is, and I had instructed Kamala, don't leave your feet. You're a big guy, and you're supposed to be a wild African animal. So here is the match absolutely stunk the house out because Bruiser wasn't going to go off of his feet, and Kamala had instructions not to go off of his, and you can imagine how bad it was.
Yeah.
So after the match, I told Bruiser, I said, this isn't going to work. We have built Kamala as a dominant force, and here you have a history of being a dominant force. We really need to go with my program, and it's fine if you make it the semifinal, and then you have your own opponent from up here.
Mm-hmm.
He said, okay, that's what we'll do. And remember this, while we are in conflict in our promotional ideas,
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Dick Apflis, and I think he liked me.
Mm-hmm.
He had me out to his house, and we enjoyed each other's company.
Right.
So we start for the next tour.
Mm-hmm.
That tour bombed. We didn't lose any money, but we sure didn't make any.
Right.
And anyway, we start for the next one, and so by that time, a fan had called me and said, Dick the Bruiser is editing the tape, because there were areas in Indiana and Illinois that our TVs overlapped.
Right.
So a few of the fans knew it, and they called me. So I called Dick again, and I said, Dick, are you showing our tape? Yeah, it's really good. I said, well, are you substituting again? He said, yeah, I am, Jerry. I got to thinking about it, and it's just not good business for me to not be on the main event. And the TV, the people are getting where they like it, and they see what's happening, so I'm still doing the edits. And I said, okay. So we ran that second tour, and then I told him that night, I'll finish up my commitment, but I don't think that we can work together. And that was the end of our co-promoting.
Yeah. Now, and you said they weren't drawing well, obviously, but so did that play into was the logistics of you bringing a crew up and your guys coming up and not making money? Did it ever in the back of your mind said, even despite the edits, did you ever think, I just don't know if this is going to pan out in the long run, or did you think that you could build it if you and Dick truly worked together?
Oh, we would have, because, like I said, there were areas where we went north in our promotion, and he came south. There were towns little bitty towns that we would draw an $8,000 house.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest house we had on his tour was 5,000.
Right.
So, I mean, there wasn't much question of what the problem is. And then toward the end of the night, Dick and I were just chatting, and I said, what do you think about the Sheik still wrestling? He said, well, he was a big star at one time, but he really needs to back off. And I said, well, do you ever think there'll come a time when you ought to back off? I said, Jerry Lawler is young enough to be your son, and he and I are already talking about getting some younger guys ready. This is a young man's business, Dick. I don't know how you're a hell of a man, or I couldn't take the bumps you're taking.
Yeah.
And I'm younger than enough to be your son. And he said, oh yeah, he said, but I just, I've done it so long, and I love it. That's my element.
Yeah.
And so I valued his friendship, and I knew that if I continued coaching or urging, that I wouldn't be his friend anymore.
Yeah. Now, so when he called you for help, say, asked you to send some tapes and work with him, did he ever give any indication of why he thought he was struggling? I mean, what was his take on why things were down?
No, I didn't ask him, because that's one of those things that I knew why he was down, and I assumed he knew why he was down.
Right.
And for me to have opened up that dialogue would have revealed that I thought he was the problem.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. There are things in the wrestling business that are more important than drawing money.
Right.
That should be the motivation, the bottom line, the ultimate factor. But sometimes it's not.
Yeah. Did you? Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just assumed that Dick was living comfortably, and I didn't want to mess up his sandbox.
Yeah. Right. So after you guys stopped working, did you ever see Dick any other time over the years? Did your paths ever cross at any conventions?
No, I really didn't, and the boys took it a whole lot more personal than I did.
Yeah.
And said some disparaging things about, calling him an old man and
yeah,
living in a fantasy. And so I didn't want to bring him to Memphis and have a chance on somebody saying something smart.
Yeah. Did you sense some of that disgruntledness with your guys coming up to Indianapolis after a tour or so, kind of questioning, why are we doing this?
Absolutely. The Rougeaus out of Canada were in.
Uh-huh.
And, they were very blunt, as most Canadians are. And, I mean, I think I'm not saying that as a knock.
Oh, no. Me.
They will say what's on their mind.
Yeah. I've always thought that's a good trait. I just wish people would just say what they think and what they feel, and so I don't have to sift through.
Yeah. And so, he said, why are we going back up here? Mm-hmm. I said, well, Dick's one of the pioneers in the business, and I'm trying to help him. I said, you're going to get your money. I'm not going to have you suffer, but I'm going to try it another time. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember if we did. I know we did 2. I don't know if we did a third tour or not.
Yeah. So what did you Do you remember when you got the news that Dick had passed away?
Yes, I do, and I was naturally sad about it because Dick had one, and if you talk a lot about him, I'm preaching to the choir. Dick had one of the most illustrious careers of anybody in the business. I mean, he really became a living legend.
Yeah.
His matches with Crusher are, I mean, they were a big deal in Tennessee and throughout the South.
Yeah. Do you, from your vantage point, and with your experience being on the promotion side and all these years, do you feel, because Bruiser did some big business in the 70s, right in Indianapolis, and he had Bobby Heenan and the Blackjacks and et cetera. Do you feel that maybe his place in wrestling history and the WWA's place is tarnished a lot by some of those decisions he made on the tail end of the run, that people tend to remember that more than they remember the prime?
I don't know. It did not with me.
Yeah.
When I would think now of Dick the Bruiser, I think about the glory days. Mm-hmm. I think about the days that, he had the reputation, and he had it, of being a really tough guy in and out of the ring.
Yeah.
And so, rather than making me mad when I went up there, I thought it was very sad.
You're right, yeah.
That, he was still trying to relive those days in the 70s, and it was 20 years past him.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the biggest. I think you pointed it out properly to me, the similarities between him and the Sheik, that, both of them and both their territories kind of aged themselves out, and that refusal to kind of pass the torch, even though there was in both places some young talent there that I think could have taken the ball and ran with it. They just weren't willing to step aside and let them go.
Yeah, well, it's funny how things work. When I was at Dick's house and he and I were just talking, he asked about Fargo. Mm-hmm. And he said, I know Fargo loves Tennessee and that's where he made home. Does he ever talk about his days selling out the Garden in New York? And I said, oh, yeah, sure he does. And he said, well, how did he take, and this really surprised me, that Dick had followed our territory and knew some of the things about him. And he said, how did he take when Lawler became the man and he wasn't? I said, he's the one that we did the program of him passing the torch. I said, Jackie came to me and said, I'll pay you not to have to go to Jonesboro tonight. We ran Jonesboro on Saturday after the TV. And I said, what is it? He said, I'm just burned out, Jerry. And he said, you're special and you gave me a second shot at fame and glory and money, but I just have to go. I said, okay, Jackie, it's time to pass the torch. Mm-hmm. And he was very willing, and without his help, I don't know that Lawler would have gotten over like he did.
Yeah.
It's hard for a new king to assume the throne.
Yeah.
And I just don't think, I don't think Dick was ready.
Yeah. I've often cited Jackie Fargo as what should have been the blueprint for how Bruiser maybe should have conducted the end of his career, and where he had maybe just step back and just come in for those special appearances, make himself more of an attraction again, where you don't see him every single show, but he come in for those special grudge matches or those special occasions, to like kind of like what you did with Jackie there, where he'd come in every once in a while and referee or come in just to make an appearance. I thought that could have worked the same exact way with Dick, or maybe even the Sheik. Even I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, it's hard to get into somebody's mind.
oh yeah,
And when and I have tasted just enough of it to be sympathetic. When you are the superstar and tens of thousands of people scream your name and you don't have something to fulfill that void, it's very, very difficult.
right.
I was lucky because from the day I got in the business, the thrill for me was behind the camera and not in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So I really never missed being in the ring.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, because I was there and have wrestled with 11,000 people screaming your name, I know that feeling, that exhilaration.
Yeah.
And so maybe a Sheik or a Dick the Bruiser or some of the people that wrestled way too long, maybe they didn't have that thrill of producing and being behind the camera.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to pull all my teeth and wear dentures.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah. Well, Jerry, thank you for coming on and talking to us. I've always said that that period where you and Dick worked together has not really been talked about a lot. It's not, I know it wasn't that long a run, but to me, it's kind of a fascinating period on how it happened and what happened, especially here in the Midwest history. So I appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it and telling your side of it and what happened.
Yeah, and Dave, here's what I hope all of your listeners will do, is not think of Dick at the end of his career, because that's not what he was.
Right.
He was one of the true superstar legends in our business. And he just made one mistake, and that was that he loved it too much to give it up.
My little itty-bitty bruiser buddies.
There you have it, that interview with Jerry Jarrett as he talks about his working relationship with Dick the Bruiser. That kind of gives you an overview of the interactions between Jerry and Dick over the years. So right now, let's talk about the portion of that relationship where Dick the Bruiser worked as a talent in Memphis. Now, Dick did a couple handfuls of appearances working in Memphis for Jerry. Of course, their relationship, as you heard Jerry talk about going to Dick about running Louisville. At one point in time, Louisville was in Indianapolis office territory, a town. And but it kind of been dark, right? Dick wasn't running there. Dick and Wilbur Snyder were not running there. They were not having shows. When Jarrett went to Gulas, it said, hey, I think I want to run Louisville. Gulas said, hey, you got to do it the right way. So he went to Dick. And for many years, he paid Dick the Bruiser a fee for running Louisville. You heard him talk about that. It got to the point where he just said, hey, it's enough, Dick. And Dick said, I get it, whatever. Early, that's Jerry's take on it. And so that's very fascinating there, the old breakdown in the borders of the territories and the respect and how it went. And that kind of started. Dick had worked in Louisville, obviously, before Jerry Jarrett. Before Jerry Jarrett. Then there was that, the Jerry taking over Louisville, so to speak. And then there's the program that ran in 74 where Jerry was building a young Jerry Lawler to be the man, to be the NWA champion, right? This quest for the title that Jerry Lawler was on. And part of this was Jerry was essentially trying to work his way through the NWA top 10 and beating the contenders, and it was a build to work him up the rankings to get a shot at Briscoe in the title. And part of that was, for us Midwest fans, included bouts of Lawler against Bobo Brazil, and included it against the Sheik and, of course, Dick the Bruiser. Now, part of the issue is the Sheik and Bruiser have always been notorious for, kind of protecting themselves, so to speak, not wanting to do the honors in certain situations and wanting to protect their image and their. After all, these two guys were the faces and the heads and the stars of their territories. Even though they were kind of getting up in age, they were still the draws, right? And they're in Detroit and in Indianapolis, of course, and also in Chicago with Bruiser and his partnership with Gagne and everything else. So Bruiser did go down. It did face Lawler, and he did lose the match, but it was by disqualification. Now, of course, there was the story that soon after on Memphis TV, there was kind of an edit and a unique spin and take where it made it look like Lawler actually defeated Bruiser. But supposedly they did the same thing with the Sheik, where it looked like Lawler beat the Sheik. And they were both apparently aggravated about it. Jerry said, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of not a big issue, but kind of brought up. So that was kind of the first little thing with incidents with Dick and Jerry working together there in that quest for the title for Jerry Lawler, with Dick working for Jerry Jarrett, and doing that as Lawler built for his title match. Now, Dick would come back in the summer of '78 and do kind of a string of matches through June, July, and August. I got some dates here. June 19th at the Mid-South Coliseum, Bruiser loses by DQ to Joe LeDuc. Man, I just stumbled all over that, didn't I? July 10th, '78, at the Mid-South Coliseum. Dick the Bruiser beat Jean Louis. And I'm curious, I think at this point he was billed as the WWE champion. I don't know whether he was billed that way in the Mid-South Coliseum. It's interesting to see that if they gave the recognition to the WWE championship at that show. July 23rd, at the Louisville Gardens, Dick the Bruiser with Joe LeDuc again. August 13th, '78, again at the Louisville Gardens, Dick the Bruiser and Tommy Marlin against Joe LeDuc and John Louis. August 21st, '78, at the Mid-South Coliseum. This right here is a fascinating match to me. Bill Dundee and Dick the Bruiser and Tommy Gilbert and Wayne Ferris went to a no contest with Joe LeDuc, John Louis, and Jimmy and Johnny Valiant. How is that for an 8-man tag? Dundee, Bruiser, Tommy Gilbert, Wayne Ferris, the future Honky Tonk Man, the Valiant Brothers. That is a fascinating match. I do wish there was video of that match. I would have loved to have seen that. So again, they're in the '78. Bruiser is going down, working some in Memphis, working some in Louisville for Jerry Jarrett as a talent. So obviously there was a good relationship there. Dick was going down doing the spots, and then of course, then in 1979, and there could have been some handful. I didn't dig through all the results records of Dick the Bruiser, but there's a notorious match, November 26, 1979, at the Mid-South Coliseum. Jerry Lawler as the Southern champion, defending his title in a non-title match, or excuse me, not defending his title, it was a non-title match with Dick the Bruiser. Bruiser wins by a reverse decision. And again, then we've got some audio from that coming up from Memphis TV where Jerry Lawler is talking about that match with Bruiser, and it's pretty entertaining. It's pretty fun. It's good Lawler. He's always entertaining with these kind of things. So that's kind of Dick the Bruiser working for Jerry Jarrett in Memphis. He was going down, clearly still a draw, clearly coming in, doing some of these spots, not getting a big spot. I don't believe featured on TV per se, except for the name dropping here and there probably, and this audio that we're getting ready to listen to with Jerry Lawler. But there is a relationship right there. There's a respect and kind of a partnership going on with them working together. So let's go real quick now. Listen to this audio. This is Jerry Lawler with Lance Russell and Dave Brown talking about the November 26, 1979 match at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. It was a Southern title match. Jerry Lawler was the champion. So let's go to that audio now and listen to Jerry Lawler talking about that match.
Ask him to come in here, Dave, if he can borrow your microphone, because we have some footage of a...
Why don't we let Buzzard Beak take a walk and you stay here with me? What do you want?
Hey, you want to sit? You can always go.
You don't want everybody to turn their TV off, do you?
We have talked a moment ago. We were discussing, Dave and I were talking off there about the defenses that Lawler has and has had of his world heavyweight title. I think that a lot of people are interested. I'm trying to get around to it, to saying the particular bout that we are going to show right now was not a world heavyweight title. You have, I know, had an impressive win over Bobo Brazil in defense of your title, and several others, as a matter of fact. But let's talk about one coming up right now. Dick the Bruiser, you wanted to fight? By golly, here was a fight. And I got to say that this was a non-title bout. Between Jerry the King Lawler and Dick the Bruiser, the international street fighter.
Well, he turned out to be Dick the Loser when I got through with him, right?
Yes.
You see, you've heard in football, they always have a game plan, right? Well, you have the same thing in wrestling. When you find out who your opponent's going to be, you got to take a little time, you got to sit down, evaluate the situation, and decide what your strategy is going to be for that match. Well, my strategy for Dick the Bruiser was simple. That was beat him at his own game. Now, he talks about he's a street fighter and a brawler. Well, let me tell you something. You're listening to the best of the street fighters and brawlers in King, baby. Don't ever let anybody tell you any different, Lance Russell. Now, Dick the Bruiser, see, he really thinks, now here's where I'm outsmarting him. He really thinks he's got me in a bad way. But the problem with Dick the Bruiser is, well, I'm almost hesitant to say it, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. He has had his day. He's seen his better days. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? He's almost in your category, Lance. Dick the Bruiser was at one time probably a really tough, mean, street-fighting, bad-news wrestler. Yeah.
I thought your talking days were over with right then and there.
And that's what Bruiser thinks, too. Look at him. He is trying everything in the book, and I knew he would do this. This is where I'm telling you my strategy comes in. I knew that Dick the Bruiser would hit me with chairs. I knew he'd run my head in the turnbuckles. I knew he'd try to choke me with ropes just like he's doing there. I knew he'd hit my head in the bells, and watch the prophecy come true. Look at that. He'd run my head in the bell. I knew he'd do all these things, and so I said to myself, let him do it, because there's no way on earth that Dick the Bruiser can hurt me. All he's going to do is wear his old feeble self down, and that's exactly what happened. You see Dick the Bruiser expending every little ounce of energy that he has in that old decrepit body of his. He's using, look at this chair. Look, that would knock out a weaker man, but not the King. No, sir, I get right back in the ring, and I'm ready for Dick the Bruiser now.
But
he can hardly get through the ropes, Russell. He's so tired. He's done everything in the book to me.
Will you let me say...
He can barely get in the ring. Look at him now. He's stalling for time. He's asking the people, what can I do to him next? I've done everything. How can I beat this man?
This is the first no disqualification match that you ever had with Dick the Bruiser in there.
That's right. Look, I told Jimmy, just come in, kind of get his attention a little bit.
Yep.
That's all right. It's a no disqualification. Dick the Bruiser asked for it to be no disqualification.
That's right.
He said anything goes, and I said that's right down my alley. And baby, something's fixing to go, and it's Dick the Bruiser's head. Here it goes, right here. Hello, Dickie boy. Boom. Good night. Turn out the lights. It's all over now. The King is on top. 1, 2, 3. So much for Dick the Bruiser. He did just like I said he would. He'd be Dick the Loser. Now, Lance Russell.
Now, right there is a situation with Lawler's hand up in the air, but
what?
There was a reversal of the decision by the referee.
That was the funniest thing I've seen in a week or two. You, Lance Russell, stand there, boy, you couldn't wait to grab that microphone and say, oh, the referee's reversed the decision. Dick the Bruiser's the winner. But you, with that airhead of yours, had forgot, just like Dick the Bruiser had, that he asked for no disqualification. So you cannot reverse a decision when there's no disqualification. I brought that to everyone's attention, and was the next day after this film was viewed, was once again declared the winner of the match. Now, is that true or not?
That is, as a matter of fact, true.
Look at Lance Russell. He hates it, boy. You hate it, don't you?
Okay.
You hate it.
Yeah.
I'm the greatest. That's a simple fact. I am the greatest wrestler there's ever been. You are jealous. All the rest of the idiots out there are jealous. That's the only problem. That's what it boils down to.
Get out of here. Okay, that's it. Jerry the King Lawler, the world heavyweight champion.
Great audio there with Jerry Lawler. What a great promo. You got to be a fan of Lawler, right? Not only was he great in the ring, his speaking skills, his mic skills were unbelievable. Putting it over there with his match with Dick the Bruiser, And now let's get to the meat of the matter here, right? The part that is so fascinating to me. I've always been so fascinated by this. Here it is. Obviously heard Jerry Jarrett talking about it some in the interview, but here's the best we can understand what happened, right? It's 1982. It's in the summerish, so to speak, early fall, late summer, early fall. 1982. Business is clearly down for the Indianapolis office. It's clearly down for Dick the Bruiser. He's struggling. We've talked to different people about why that is, what it is, why Dick the Bruiser, as wrestling was starting to boom, why Dick the Bruiser's business was going down. And there's lots of theories, lots of opinions on it. Some of them very well thought out. We're not here to discuss that. But anyway, Dick understood that things were kind of on the decline, that things were slowing down. Something was going on. This is where you want to think there was always this great relationship with Dick the Bruiser and Jerry Jarrett, because Dick the Bruiser calls Jerry and says, Jerry, I'm having trouble. Can you send me your Memphis tapes? Let me put them on my TV. Can you come up? Let's see if we can bump the business and get things up. Jerry says, sure, I'll help you out, Dick. So Jerry Jarrett starts sending Dick the Bruiser tapes of Memphis TV. Dick the Bruiser starts showing these in his time slots in the Indianapolis area, in all of his, part of his territory. Now, I've asked around, I've talked to many people. Most people don't really remember these Memphis tapes running in these slots. There were supposed to be local promos by Bruiser and maybe some of his guys, spliced into the TV, plugs for the shows they were going to do in the Indianapolis area, but most people don't remember. So I'm not sure. I think this might have been probably, I would guess, the same exact thing as the Louisville edit of the Memphis TV in the other towns, but particularly the Louisville edit, sent to Bruiser. Bruiser was supposed to be putting in some local promos with him and some other guys, and then it was supposed to be aired in their slot. I've never seen any video of these. I'm fascinated by this and how it went. So there was a couple months there between summer and fall where WWA didn't really run any shows. Then there's a handful of shows that pop up in November, early December, in Indianapolis, in Fort Wayne, in North Vernon, back in Indianapolis. And there's talk that there might have been a Hammond show in there and some other things. I'm not sure, but these are pretty well documented shows here, where there is Memphis talent running on Bruiser shows with just a couple of WWA Dick the Bruiser guys on the shows. Any of us that are familiar with WWA, the names that were working these shows from the Indianapolis office are the kind of guys that we all agree were the talents that kind of stood out at the time. There's a heavy emphasis through all this on the WWA tag team titles. Jerry's not sure if that was by design, if it just happened that way, but it was kind of the keystone feature. This was a program that ran between what we started off as the champions, Spike Huber and Steve Regal, and then the challengers from Memphis, the New York Dolls, Troy Graham and Rick McGraw, who were managed by Jimmy Hart. In a Memphis match, Huber and Regal went down, worked Memphis, and they actually dropped the titles to the New York Dolls. So the New York Dolls, a Memphis tag team, Dream Machine Troy Graham, Quick Draw Rick McGraw, as you guys all know them, the New York Dolls with Jimmy Hart were the WWA Tag Champions. I'm fascinated by this. It is so intriguing to me how this happened. I wish there was more information on who were making these decisions. How is this developing? Jarrett's not recalling a lot of the information on how these things were occurring in the talks. It's fascinating to me that this was occurring, and it's really, really good stuff. There are some video. This is where I found the audio and video that I wanted to include. Why I went back to re-record these parts. There is some video that I converted to audio for the show from Memphis TV featuring the New York Dolls with the WWA Tag Team titles. How cool is that? The WWE Tag titles on Memphis TV, the New York Dolls with Jimmy Hart. And here coming up, you'll hear the audio. They talk about Spike Huber or Steve Regal. They talk about going to Indianapolis and for Bob Luce, right? For promoter Bob Luce, that's how they put it, right? The figurehead, and winning the World Tag titles. Then there's some audio still talking about being World Tag Champs. It's still the WWE titles. But as they go into a program with the Fabulous Ones, and who at that time were a new tag team, right? This is on the front end of the Fabulous Ones, and they are coming into it and feuding with the New York Dolls. This is just amazing. I wish there was more video of some of these stuff. Let's talk about some of these shows, right? The first one that is documented, November 25th, 1982, at the Tyndall Armory in Indianapolis. Listen to this card, okay? Terry Taylor gets a win over Kamala. The New York Dolls are the champs. They defend against Spike Huber and Steve Regal. They'd already won them in Memphis by this time. Dutch Mantell gets a win over Crusher Broomfield, later to be known as the One Man Gang and Akeem of ICW fame. This is when he's worked in Memphis a little bit and here en route to other things. Jerry Roberts gets a win over the Angel, and El Bracero, our Indianapolis favorite, gets a win over Max Blue, another Midwest guy. Now, here's another cool thing. Just a note. Jerry Roberts, I have no definitive proof on who exactly this Jerry Roberts was, but I do know for a fact that Jacques Rougeau Jr., who later was the Mountie, later was part of the Quebecers and the Mounties and so on and so forth, the fabulous Rougeau brothers, in the WWF, WWE, wrestled in the United States as Jerry Roberts. We do know Jacques Rougeau worked in Memphis around this time. You'll hear more about that here in a little bit, here in a few minutes on another date I'm going to give you. My speculation, and I think it's a good guess, this Jerry Roberts is Jacques Rougeau Jr. working in Indianapolis on essentially a WWA card. It's pretty cool, right? He came, didn't want to really, he kind of wanted to establish himself, not feed off the family name and everything else. So he wrestled as Jerry Roberts for a while. So anyway, then the next night, November 26, 82, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now, this is an interesting show. Let me talk about the results, and then we'll talk about why this is interesting. Dick, okay, actually, let's go through all these. I got 4 dates here. Let's go through all the dates, then we'll come back to this Fort Wayne card. But anyway, on this show, Dick the Bruiser got a win over the Kamala. The WWE Tag Titles, the New York Dolls, defend, which was no contest with Steve Regal, Spike Huber. Dutch Mantell beat Crusher Broomfield. Terry Taylor beat the Angel, and Jerry Roberts got a win over Max Blue. November 27th, 82, North Vernon, Indiana. Dick the Bruiser, Spike Huber, Steve Regal got a win over the Angel, Troy Graham, Rick McGraw. Terry Taylor defeated Abdullah the Great, a Midwest regular, WWA regular. Dutch Mantell beat Crusher Broomfield. Jerry Roberts got a win over Max Blue. Then December 9th, 1982, at the Tyndall Armory in Indianapolis, Indiana, the New York Dolls lost by DQ to the Fabulous Ones. Spike Huber defeated the Angel. Steve Regal defeated Carl Fergie. Terry Taylor got a win by DQ over a young Bobby Eaton. And Coco Beware defeated Jacques Rougeau. That's right. They're credited him as Jacques Rougeau here. That's why I believe at this time that one of the reasons I believe that Jerry Roberts is Jacques Rougeau. Again, how fascinating is it? December 9th on a WWA show, the Tyndall Armory in Indianapolis, the Fabulous Ones appearing. Steve Lane and Stan Curtin. That is so cool to me. Bobby Eaton appearing on the show is so cool to me. And I wish there was footage of this show. How awesome would that be to see that? Anyway, so as this partnership goes on, and we're going to come back to that Fort Wayne show I mentioned and why it's significant. Word gets back to Jerry Jarrett. The key at Memphis at this time, they are building Kamala to be this monster, right? And then word gets back to Jerry Jarrett that suddenly the booking's being changed from things they agreed to. And Dick is putting himself in the ring with Kamala. Not only is he doing that, but he's doing your prototypical Dick the Bruiser match. No sell, no sell, no sell, no sell. Bring on the power. Dick gets the win. Right? That's that match prototype from Dick the Bruiser that we've all grown to love here in the Midwest. But it was not agreed upon because it was kind of burying this Kamala character that Jerry's building in Memphis. And word gets back to Jerry Jarrett that Dick's messing with the booking, messing with the cards, messing with the results, doing things differently. Jerry says he came, I guess, was apparently in during the tour at some point, saw a poster advertising Dick the Bruiser versus Kamala, and that kind of helped trigger, what's going on here? and as you heard him say, he confronted Dick. Not confronted is a strong word. It wasn't really a confrontation, but he questioned Dick about it. Dick said, "Yeah, I just think I'm the draw," and that kind of ended. Jerry said, well, we can't. We're not going to do this anymore. We had some agreements. Let's just call it a truce here. Just call it done." And so it was a very short-lived partnership. The match there in Fort Wayne, November 26, 1982, where the Bruiser going over on Kamala, is the show that set that off, right? That's the match and the show that Dick was kind of messing with the booking, put himself over on Kamala in a strong fashion that kind of just ticked everything else off. And by early 1983, WWA's back running their typical shows with their typical crews, and TV's back to the way it was before. So essentially, there's talk with Jerry and other people of hey, I think there was a tour. I think there was 2 tours. There might have been 3 little tours here. There's only records really of kind of one tour of these 4 dates, maybe 5 dates. Like I said, there might be another early December, late November Hammond show. We're not sure. I've dug and searched through newspapers.com trying to find more information. The only thing I've really come across is an ad for this North Vernon show, and then an ad for the Indianapolis show with the Fabulous Ones on it. There were some results from the North Vernon show I found in the paper, but not a lot else. There's nothing on the Fort Wayne show really that I can find. Nothing really on the other Indianapolis show. Okay, with respect, on the Fort Wayne show, Tim Tassler, a friend of the show, who was on our Bruiser birthday tribute show, and a longtime Fort Wayne WWA historian, went to all the shows in the area at that time, did confirm he was at that show. Did confirm put online on my Facebook post a picture of the note card that he used to write results on for every show he went to. So he was at that show. Said he doesn't remember a whole lot about it, but there is the confirmation that show did occur, and the results of that show through him and being at the show. So, but from the best of the information I can gather, there was just the one tour where they worked together. There was the deal with the Bruiser and Kamala match in Fort Wayne that kind of, however you depend on it, it wasn't, long story short, it wasn't really what they had agreed upon doing. Dick thought he was doing what was best for his business. Jerry was kind of wanting to protect his business, so it was a difference of opinion. And as you heard Jerry say, there was no hard feelings there, right? There was no anger in the split. It was just a split, right? They decided to cease working together. But it's so fascinating to me that, especially me personally, because I'm, of course, a huge fan of Midwest Wrestling. All right, I love the WWE in Indianapolis office. I love the Big Time Wrestling Detroit office. I love the AWA. But I love Memphis Wrestling, right? Who does not love Memphis Wrestling? And to think that those two came together and worked during these 4 shows, and the 4 documented shows that we know of, and that Memphis was on, the Memphis tapes were on TV here, that the New York Dolls were the WWE Tag Champs on Memphis TV, that Spike Huber and Steve Regal went and did some Memphis TV appearances and worked in the Mid-South Coliseum. That's all so fascinating and amazing to me, and I wish there was more on it. And I'm going to continue to dig, and hopefully, who knows, right? Things turn up all the time. Maybe it will. One can hope. Which brings us to the audio and video that I found that held up this episode in the latest round of holdups, right? We're going to take it to you now. It's all New York Dolls audio. Again, it starts off real shortly after they win the WWA tag titles in Memphis from Spike Huber and Steve Regal. You're going to hear Jimmy Hart talk about it. And then there's a promo. Actually, there's 2 other promos, excuse me, where Hart's talking about different things with the Fabulous Ones and other teams, but they're still WWE Tag Champs, still talking about that. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, and you should be a subscriber there because I've got a lot of great old Midwest wrestling, a lot of old WWE wrestling, some other things, along with the podcast there you can find, if you look under the current show playlist, there you can find the video for these. I'm putting it up, and it actually, there's more to the video than to the audio, right? There is actually a New York Dolls match in there against a couple of enhancement talents, and there's also clips of a match with the New York Dolls and Spike Huber and Steve Regal from Memphis. Very, very Very cool stuff. So go to YouTube, make sure you subscribe to me, and go watch that. I'm going to share it on all of our social media as well. So make sure you share that with all your friends. So right now, though, let's go to the audio version of that. The New York Dolls with Jimmy Hart, the WWA Tag Champions from Memphis TV in 1982.
Champions, speaking of champions, Jimmy Hart stood out here. That's right, baby. I stood out and I said, you're going to be looking at the new world champions. And when Jimmy Hart says something, he backs it up, baby. Look at them, dolls. Look at the audience, baby. Look at these people. You know, everywhere we go, the people are saying, we want the dolls. We want the dolls. Well, let me tell you what, baby. We don't want you. Because when Jimmy Hart was laying up in that hospital bed, who sent me flowers and cards? Nobody. So don't try to jump on my bandwagon now, baby, with my dolls. The world champions. You know, this is the greatest week for me in my life. The greatest week. You know, Mr. Bob Luce up in Indianapolis has been calling me every week. He's been saying, Jimmy, oh, Jimmy, would you please give my pretty little boys, my little Spikey Hubert, the Young Lions, is what they call themselves now, the Young Lions, and Stevie Regal, another shot at those bells. Please, will you come to Indianapolis and see what happened, man? See, they came down to Jimmy Hart's backyard. And when anybody comes in my backyard, baby, there's only one way out, and it's through me. And you don't go through me, so they lost the scraps here. So now every day, Bob Luce, tight pockets, money wad, man. I said, if you can come up with some bread, we might come back to Indy. We might come up there and make a tour, but I don't think if he took all the money in the whole state up there, if he took everybody up there in Indianapolis and put the money together, there's not enough to get the dolls back up there, man. Like I said, the Young Lions, you want us, baby, then come and get us. You're looking at the world champions, boy, the New York Dolls, the greatest team in professional wrestling. So, Mr. Luce, Mr. Tight Pockets, if you want Jimmy Hart, come up with a scratch, baby, because you're looking at the world champions, baby, the world champions.
Championship Wrestling. By golly, what an interesting show today. And let me tell you about interesting. Tonight out at the fairgrounds, I said tonight out at the fairgrounds, the action is going to be good. Robert Gibson going against Carl Fergie. Bobby Fulton against the Angel. Buddy Landell and Dutch Mantell going against the brand new New Zealand Sheep Herders. And then the main event. Stand by for this one. Jimmy Hart, New York Dolls, will be engaged in a little fisticuff with the brand new fabulous ones. You'll be hearing more about in just a moment.
You know what? You have seen the rest, but now you are definitely looking at the best. A touch of class. Nashville is coming at you. Music City, USA. Let me introduce my men the way they should be introduced for you. Ladies and gentlemen, and I use that word very, very loosely, I present to you the greatest tag team in professional wrestling, the new world champions, my New York Dolls. Now, you can take it back. Come on, tell them, Big Dog. That's what it's all going to be like. You know, that's Grand Ole Opry Town, what I'm saying. Funky. Graveyard disposition, a tombstone mine. Two big white mother sons that don't mind dying. You know, I got my head on cocky. Jackie Fargo, you think you the head mucking the muck honcho around Nashville, Tennessee. You got another thing coming. You bring your fabulous ones and come on down and get the New York Dolls. You understand what I'm saying? Because, baby, it's New York. You understand what I'm saying? Uptight, wanting to fight. Tell them what it's going to be like, dog.
That's why I roll up every street except those leading to the fairground, because the only activity happening in the Music City tonight is going to be the New York Dolls. Right. Bringing it down, bringing it to the fabulous ones, they call themselves. Jackie Fargo, you better stay at home, because you're going to be embarrassed right there in Nashville, Tennessee, where the New York Dolls are the ones that will be reckoned with, Jack.
I think not only you, but the rest of the Hart group right here better stay around and just take a listen to what we got coming up on Championship Wrestling in there. Tonight, the New York Dolls and the fabulous ones. And I got to guarantee you this, it is going to be worth your trip, your admission, to get in to see that one battle. That's tonight at the fairgrounds. Yeah, better believe that. What was the time again?
Time on it was 3 minutes, 13 seconds.
3 minutes, 13 seconds. The winners, the Sheep Herders over Fulton and Stark. We've got more tag action coming up in just a moment. I'll tell you one that was a dandy was the New York Dolls defending the title against the guys they had won it from, Steve Regal and Spike Huber.
Imitator?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man. Imitator, let me tell you something, Jackie Fargo. Why don't you take this quarter, baby, and why don't you call somebody who cares if you come back into professional wrestling or not, baby? Let me tell you something. You want to show pictures of blood and black eyes? Hey, Jimmy Hart's been down that road too, Pally. I hate that word, Pally. If he said it again, I'd blow my brains out. Well, let me tell you something, Pally. I've had the black eyes, and I've had the scars on my head, and I've been in the hospital with a broken leg, and I've had the fractured jaw too, Pally. Where have you been for 3 years? I'll tell you where you've been, getting those false a security check, boy. Well, this is professional wrestling now. 1982, not 1952, baby. The extras are out, Fargo. They're all gone. Music City's our town. Let me tell you something. It's still Steve Kern and Stan Lane, but with beards. Why they got beards? Because the First Family has them. Because, you see, they are followers. They're not leaders. So, Fargo, why don't you call somebody that gives a care? I promise you one thing.
That's right, Jackie Fargo. I'd have been ashamed, man, to get up here on that film and show my skunk head. You better take $2, as you so call it, and buy you some bleach, boy. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to make one of probably the biggest mistakes that you've ever made in your fat, stinking life. You understand what I'm talking about? Because I'll tell you why, Fargo. I'll tell you exactly why. You should have stayed on that golf course, because the wrestling business, there's no place for you now, and there's no place for you, Stan Lane. There's no place for you, Steve Kern, because we're going to show you a lesson. You understand what I'm talking about? I see a lot of dirty days done dirt cheap, and I know, Fargo, that you've done a lot of them.
All right, that's it. The New York Dolls, a fabulous one tonight. Right out there at the fairgrounds. We'll see who the imitators and who the leaders and followers are. All right, tonight's the one. You better be out there and see it, too.
And there you have it. The New York Dolls, then the WWA World Tag Team Champions on Memphis TV. Such cool audio. Such a fascinating story. Such a wonderful slice of wrestling history. And how this all unfolded. How it goes back to Bruiser working in Memphis. Jerry Jarrett taking Louisville from Dick the Bruiser. Then the partnership in 82. Such a wonderful, wonderful segment of professional wrestling history. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope that this episode was entertaining enough to make the wait worthwhile. Before we get out of here, I'd like to send out some thank yous, obviously, to Jerry Jarrett for agreeing to do the interview and talking with me. I have so much respect for Mr. Jarrett and everything he's accomplished. One of the truly greats and a great, great man, personally also, to deal with. Thank you for being on the show today and doing that interview. Also a thank to Chris Parsons and Tim Tassler and Clawmaster for all their work as historians for Midwest Wrestling and the results that they have shared and put out there for others to use for informational purposes and for all the chats I have with Chris and Tim about these things. Thank you so much for helping and letting me pick your brains on things relating to this episode. I couldn't have done it without them. Support all of the podcasts here on the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network. Best way to do that is go to our Pro Wrestling Tees store. It is at ProWrestlingTees.com/TheDaveDynasty. There you will find all of the shirts that we offer. I Heart Old School Wrestling, Bruiser Buddy, the Podcast Mask shirt, and of course, the official shirts for the Ontario Wildmen and the Ring a Ding Dong Dandy podcast. Visit ProWrestlingTees.com/TheDaveDynasty. Order a shirt and support the network. If you would also like to support, you can join our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/DaveDynasty. There you will get exclusive audio and video clips, early releases on podcasts, and much, much more. And if you would just like to make one-time contributions to support us, you can go to paypal.me/TheDaveDynasty. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for listening. Continue to support independent wrestling podcast. All right, there you have it. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wrestling Nostalgia with Dave Dynasty, and thank you for being patient with us. Like I said, lots going on, caused some delays, but as a thank you and an early Christmas present, we gave you this triple shot of episodes today with 3 great interviews. We hope you enjoyed them, and we hope you tune in next week to another free episode of Wrestling Nostalgia with Dave Dynasty. Until then, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.